Good afternoon and welcome to Keough's Corner. I have some special guests with me this afternoon. We are going to talk a little bit about kindergarten and what goes on in kindergarten. I know so many people in the community have heard recently conversations about kindergarten, full-day kindergarten, should we have full-day kindergarten, half-day kindergarten, which is better, and is it just daycare? All sorts of questions and inaccuracies out there about what takes place in at this critical age. So I'd like to take a few minutes just to talk about that and learn from people who are on the front lines. We have wonderful teachers at this level and administrators at this level, and I thought, well, let's just hear from the people who do this. These are folks who've been serving Easton for some time and that I have great respect for. So I want to introduce them. I have to my left Chris Getchell, who is the principal at PARKVIEW Elementary School, and to his left Kareena Griffin, who is a first grade teacher at MOREAU Hall, but has also taught full-day kindergarten and half-day kindergarten, and Sheila Dever-David, who is a full-day kindergarten teacher at PARKVIEW Elementary School, and Tom Higgins, who is the principal at MOREAU Hall and was an elementary teacher where before, Tom?
Here in Easton for 13 years, grade 3.
Grade 3,
yep.
Excellent. So, so thank you all for joining me, and so let's start out with some of the the questions that we hear about kindergarten. Do you think there is a difference between full-day kindergarten and half-day kindergarten? Does it matter? Should the town of Easton even be concerned with funding full-day kindergarten? That's really kind of the bigger question that comes up all the time. And in your opinions, is there a difference between full-day and half-day? What do you think?
I think there's an enormous difference between full-day and half-day. We've had a full tuition-based full-day model now in Easton for 4 years. 4 years. So we have 4 years of experience and also 4 years of data to clearly support there is tremendous social and academic benefits for going full day in kindergarten. I remember when we first transitioned to a tuition-based full day model 4 years ago, a lot of the parents out there were understandably concerned about, if we go to a full day model, does that mean we're basically turning kindergarten into first grade? Mm-hmm. And understandable where they were coming from, and what our message was then and what it continues to be now is that no, in fact, the purpose of going to a full day kindergarten is not to turn it into a first grade, but to give kids at 5 and 6 year olds more time during the day to meet the standards that our state puts forward for kindergarten. So the full day model isn't doubling the amount of learning standards our kids are accountable for. It's giving them the same standards, but giving them an entire day, a 6.5 hour day to accomplish and work toward those standards and build in critical and really important aspects of kindergarten in the social realm, like dramatic play, movement breaks, time for an extra recess, gross motor practice, fine motor practice. It's not just paper, pencil, let's become first graders. So, our kids in full day and our teachers in full day over the past 4 years have really felt sort of a relief to have more time to accomplish the same curriculum. Mm-hmm. And our kids have felt that relief too.
I can wait until later in the day, or if there's something that I've found that they need a little more practice, or a little, I need to just kind of review some skills and reteach something, that I have that flexibility that at the end of the day or somewhere towards the middle of the day that I can go back and reteach. So there's more flexibility as well with the full day kindergarten.
And in the experience of half-day kindergarten, we did do a lot of, center activities and creating a very...
Can you talk about what you mean by center activities?
Sure. So it was so more of a literacy-based centers. So it was
kids moving
from different areas within the room in order to build in those movement breaks. because it is so important. They're little bodies, they need to be moving around. And asking them to sit at a table or at a desk to do pencil paper is not effective for their learning. It's not developmentally where they're at. And not to say that we don't do pencil paper activities, but those are, you know, supplemental in order to help, you know, check on their abilities or to give them more independent practice. You know, a lot of them are built through, you know, games that we can play with the kids to develop those phonics and phonemic awareness skills. But in that half-day setting, it's very much so, you know, the moment they walk in, you only have them for a few hours. So you
if
have
they're
to
going to have the same amount of learning, kind of formalized learning, you have to rush.
In other sense, like, you try to make sure that you give those kids the wait time that they need, but you know, some kids just need 5 minutes, but all you really can allot them is 2. And it's a different time of, you know, building in that schedule and having it not feel like you walk in and you're running till the end until you're putting them on the bus. And the kids feel that pressure. They feel like, I need to finish this quickly. So sometimes, you know, they're able to do a skill, but then they don't have enough time to hone that skill and really master that skill.
So let me ask you, so for a half-day student, is it possible that a half-day student could actually leave the day more exhausted than the full-day student?
I think so.
Yeah. Because there might be more of a strain to just, you know, get through the same content in a shorter period of time.
And
the bottom line is when they're all going to the same place at the end of kindergarten, they're all going to first grade. They're all going to be in the same first grade classroom, and teachers, the half-day teachers, feel a tremendous pressure. They have to accomplish and get their kids to meet all of those kindergarten standards in early literacy and math. And the full-day teachers next door have over double the amount of time to do that.
Right.
So there's a lot of pressure on the half-day teachers and kids to accomplish the same academic piece in less than half the time.
I've had every one of my kindergarten teachers currently was half-day at some point and has experienced that hair on fire trying to get through the 2.5 hours every day. So my time here, I've hired a half-day kindergarten teacher every year and was able to transfer them into full-day positions. And every time I hire a new one, I say to them, go and talk to Kareena, go and talk to Miss Police, go and talk to Mrs. Dutra. They've all done that half day and now are full day. And Kareena has a unique perspective, having come from another district and done both as well. So that's why I asked her here today, even though she's in first grade. And I think it's important because she now has some of those half-day kiddos she had last year. And you do see that difference.
So I think that is a really important question that people at home have. Is there a difference of a kid who's come through the half-day program and a kid who's come through the full-day program in terms of preparedness for school? Because really what this is about is preparing them for this critical learning that takes place in that K to 4 stage. So I've had this conversation many times as a school administrator. When I was a high school principal, people would say, what are you doing about the achievement gap? And by that they meant, what are you doing about the kids who are so far behind for whatever reason? What are you doing? And it always seemed to me to be very late. And that in fact, high school is very late to address achievement gaps, that the time to do it was in this K to 4 level. So what is the difference in terms of preparedness of a half day versus full day, and does it matter?
You bring up an excellent question. I think one of the most exciting aspects of the full day kindergarten transition has been actually our data, our literacy data at the end of the year.
What do you mean by that, Chris?
What I mean by that is when all kindergartners come into Easton Public Schools, they are giving one-to-one, meaning one student per teacher, assessments in literacy and math,
so
right from September.
Right
so
by
the 3rd week of school in kindergarten, we have already identified students who can't identify letters, have trouble remembering sounds,
can't segment those words.
Can't segment those words, and also the kids who come into kindergarten reading and are ready for maybe a different approach. So because of the full day model, because of the additional time, we're able to give individualized assessments to these kids and get them what they need immediately. So our kindergartners that come in that are struggling with letter identification are getting literacy interventions by their kindergarten teacher and also by specialists to close those gaps. And it is a lot easier to close those gaps in kindergarten than it is in 5th, 6th, 7th grade. So
Right.
I have seen, and we have the data to support this, a noticeable difference in our kindergarten achievement with full-day kindergarten. We're having over 80% of our kindergartners last year at PARKVIEW left kindergarten reading, which was significantly higher than it's ever been. And that is because we have some obviously supportive parents. It all starts at home, but also we're using our data very intelligently, I believe, in kindergarten, getting kids what they need early in the year and often.
And just to tag along to that point, with the full day model, I found that, granted, there's some intervention that can happen, there's a lot that happens in the morning, but then I also have the option of, if I would like to do some one-on-one or some small group in the afternoon, again, I have that additional time to use.
And just speaking as having taught those half-day children, and yes, some of them got to come with me, but not all of them did. So there was a benefit of me knowing exactly where they left off for those few children in my classroom. And we get data coming to 1st grade, so I know all the kids that I knew before they came to school how they were doing in kindergarten. But seeing them in the classroom, there are obviously kids that, came in knowing all of these things, and so they continued, on par. They kind of followed where they should be and met the standards. And then there were those kids that were struggling coming into half day, and they're still struggling in 1st grade. And it's not for a lack there of, teacher support or, reading specialist support or math support. It's the fact that they just didn't have as many interactions with that text or with those skills as they did their full-day counterparts. So seeing those kids coming with you, like, yes, there are some kids that are fine in that half-day model. It depends, kind of depends on how they are just kind of coming in and what they're doing at home before kindergarten or what they're doing after they leave. Those other full-day counterparts were having, an additional 3.5 hours to digest those topics that we were talking about in half-day. And, the kids that are in that half-day model, it is a rush, and their social skills are even, you don't have enough time to just play. They don't have time to sit with a friend and play a game together, or have dramatic playtime because it just doesn't fit into the schedule. When you look at the number of standards that we need to have these kiddos meet, that something has to give. And unfortunately, sometimes it's that aspect. And it's not like, yes, you can build in, doing reader's theater, but that's not as effective when they're still learning how to read. It's not that that's something that they're fluently able to do, so it's really not building in those same skills that you would in that full day, having that a little bit more time.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears just a little bit, because I think when we talk about, or when I hear discussions in the community about the need for full-day kindergarten, unfortunately, money becomes part of the conversation. To go to a full-day kindergarten model would be basically like saying school runs from kindergarten to grade 12, period. Just like now it runs from kindergarten for some kids to K-12, but 1st grade to to grade 12, absolutely. So, and the question is, why do some people go with half day? And I think that in some instances, people may choose to send their child to half day because they think it's better developmentally for their child, and that's a kind of a personal decision, and it's available to them, an option available to them now. But unfortunately, more often than not, it seems to me, now maybe I'm wrong, that we have families who simply can't afford the cost of the full-day kindergarten, which is what right now?
$3,500 for the year.
$3,500 for the year. So have you experienced in your time here families who you thought would have preferred their child be in full-day kindergarten but simply couldn't afford it?
You know, there are those parents who decide to send their child to half-day K because they are going to enrich them outside of school in that second half of the day, whether it's take them to parks or museums or you know, what have you. But there are also some parents who just can't afford it. My own experience as a parent, my oldest daughter did half-day because it was tuition-based, and as a young family, it was not an option. And then my second daughter went to full-day kindergarten, and we could see that difference. And my third is raring to go. I mean, she would go to full-day preschool if she had the choice. Her sisters are in school full-day, and she wonders, why aren't I going to school full-day as a 4.5-year-old? So there's even that question of, and you know, Chris discussed this previously about full-day preschool being free in a lot of places in the United States, and how we're a little bit behind the times with a full-day tuition-free kindergarten.
Oh, my son, who's 16 now, he went to full-day K when I lived in Virginia, free. It was absolutely free in Virginia.
It was part of the,
and that was, yeah, it was part of what it was being offered in Virginia. I believe they still offer it, free full-day K for all kids, and that was 12 years ago.
I had a great chance to travel to Finland to check out their schools. Now, Finland and the U.S. are dramatically different. Anyone who's studied either of those countries knows that. But it was fascinating to me, kind of the commitment by that country to early childhood care. And what was, so they did absolutely have full-day preschool and full-day kindergarten. But what was also very interesting is how much emphasis they placed on playtime.
Definitely.
On actually downtime and recess. But not just cut the kids loose. It was playtime with each other. So that they, what was going on then?
There's so much information out there about how from the ages of birth to the age of 5, 6, those are crucial years for children to develop those social skills. And definitely, I see that in my classroom. In fact, I have emails from parents, several emails from parents asking about recess. My daughter or my son is having a hard time making friends and they feel uncomfortable. And I'd love to have that information because that's something that I have the opportunity. I do take my kids out for morning recess and I monitor them and I look for interactions, and that's where I can kind of come in as support. Help them with wording or help them with how to engage others and how to interact with others. Social learning is huge with children at this age, and certainly when you have academic standards that you need to meet, there's obviously that's the key piece in public schools, but there's the huge social learning that needs to go on, and I have that opportunity in the afternoon to have that where I can play games with kids. We have a social centers time where they're interacting with others, and I can be there to support or be there to help them engage.
And it's hard for parents that elect to keep their children home and keep them in half day, and it's not a financial concern for those parents. It's hard to replicate that social piece at home. You just simply don't have a large group of commonly aged peers where kids can make those mistakes socially, which are great learning times. And then we have skilled professionals there that can help them sort of rewind the tape and role play through how it should have went. And those are critical teaching moments at a very important age. And you can't replicate that outside of school setting, really. I mean, it's hard to as a parent. So, I mean, those are pieces that people don't always think about when they think about kindergarten and full-day kindergarten, but incredibly important. And
I feel like a lot of my students last year would have like a play date after school, but that's one-on-one play. That's, they're learning how to, they can share with one another, but what happens when you add a third kid or a fourth kid, or what happens when you add 18? It's learning how to interact within a whole group. Some kids come in and they think, well, I'm it. And you're like, well, there's 20 of you. So, there's one of me and 20 of you. And in that half-day model, it's very difficult for them to kind of understand how, we can create those situations in like a group of 5 kids playing together in social circles, having, you know, more of a play-based center time rather than just having to have it a literacy-based center time, or having it have to be a literacy game or a math game, which they love to play and they love to do those things, and they are not quite positive that they're learning those things as they're doing them. You kind of sneak it in, but keeping them in those very small groups, and then when they come in and there's 20 of them and they're like, well, how do I navigate this? You know, it's very difficult to make a new friend when you see and you're overwhelmed and there's 18 kids that are the same size as you and want to play different things than you, and you don't know how to navigate that.
It's interesting. It's so fascinating for me, having been in high schools for so long and seen kids at the other end of the spectrum, and there is a connection. There absolutely is a connection. And people would say to me as a high school principal, and they are alarmed about this across the nation right now, about the social emotional well-being of students right now in our society. It tends to show itself primarily in the worst kind of form in the secondary level. This is where the kids really, the wheels come off the bus. And frequently, it has something to do with the child's ability to be social with others,
And problem solve.
or inability.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to interact with their peers. It becomes obvious that they don't know how to interact with their peers, and somebody teases them because they don't know how to interact with their peers, and then you get this thing going. Now, if you throw into the mix Facebook, where now there's a whole nother social setting, and kids haven't had opportunities to navigate those social waters, is that a problem? And in my assessment, there's a big problem. So the more we can actually spend time on the social development of these children, the better. If in fact a child is in a half-day program, then some of that social experience has been eliminated because the emphasis is on the academic core and making sure that the kids are developing those early literacy skills. So in my mind, there is an absolute connection with the social emotional well-being of our children who will become our citizens. If you can't navigate those social waters in high school, how are you going to navigate them in college, and how are you going to navigate them in the workplace?
And early childhood, that's the crucial time for them to pick up these skills.
These are life skills
Exactly,
then.
yeah.
So there is probably one of the most compelling reasons or that someone might advocate for a full-day program. We've discussed the cost factor and the fact that some people just can't afford it. And chances are, those who can't afford it may in fact also be from the families who are less able to provide the supplemental learning experiences to the museums, etc., or the reading. So those kids may in fact really be getting a double whammy, because they might not be getting as much support at home, and now they're not getting it in school either. So I think those are two big arguments for a full-day program. We have just a few minutes left. Are there others that I've missed?
I think, you know, people outside of the world of education, the kids are grown or just not involved, tend to underestimate the capability of kindergartners. I mean,
that is a fact.
Before I was a principal, I was a 5th grade teacher. I didn't have as much experience professionally with kindergarten population, but I've come to have tremendous respect for how much they're capable of. And people don't understand. 0 to 5 is when your brain is growing the most. I mean, in just common sense, that is the time that you're having the most development intellectually. Why not capitalize on that moment by giving them more time in an academic setting? I mean, bare bones, common sense. I mean, it just makes sense to me. And kindergartners, with the right interventions, the right skilled instructors, are capable of reading. They're capable of learning different languages. They're capable of a lot of things. And
well, I can give you a good example.
Sure.
As a kindergarten student, I actually played hooky the first time in my life. Maybe there was one other time. And actually went home during lunch and decided I'd stay home and watch television. And when my mother came home, she said, "What are you doing?" And I told a little bit of a white lie to my mother, but this was in kindergarten. And I said that, yeah, the teacher let us go home early today, so I just decided to stay and watch television. And that's at kindergarten age. So that's just kind of a good example of how their minds are really working.
They really are.
Yeah, and I'm sure they keep you busy.
I hope not quite like that, but.
Well, you know, I mean, it turned out okay. But, and the other thing that I just have to, you know, I love that, I always tell this story about how when I told you guys at the beginning of the year, the royal reader for my daughter's kindergarten class. And to be the royal reader, you were a parent, obviously, and you came in and you had to wear the king's robe and a crown, and of course friends of mine would walk down the hall and I'd be standing out in the hallway, hello, very embarrassing. But there was one child who looked out the window and said, "Hey everybody, his nose is humongous." And I was so embarrassed, I still remember it. And you know, it's just, there's so much play and fun and humor and wittiness that's going on with these kids that we don't realize. I think we tend to think, like you said, Chris, it's like these are just little children and it's like they play with little wooden trucks and that's the end of it. There's so much development going on.
Great thinkers, they really are.
You're lucky. You're so blessed to be working with them.
Yeah.
And you've had the experience lately, especially of visiting our kindergarten classrooms, which I appreciate as an administrator. I know our teachers appreciate and have seen it.
I have.
You know, live and in action. We have to commend our teachers for the job they do.
Oh, yes.
Because it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of effort to make sure that those 18 to 24 kids are learning as much as they do and
you know, Tom,
as motivated as they are.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I leave there excited, number one, that I'm a superintendent and overseeing such a cool process, such an amazing life process. To go in there and see these kids interacting with the teacher and learning to read, and the tools that teachers use to manage behavior. Yeah. Gone are the days where you might be grabbed like this or by your arm. There is none of that. The teachers are so skilled at managing student behavior, keeping them focused, keeping them, you know, if you think that that rug with all the squares is just a nice design, but no, there's actually there's a strategy.
There's a reason for those.
There's a strategy. I didn't know that. There's so much that goes on. It's just incredible. So I want to thank you guys first and foremost for all the work that you do, and on behalf of not only the children of Easton, but our society. I know it sounds corny, but I really do believe that if we are going to make a difference in the world, it starts in our own backyard, and that is in fact what you're doing. You're serving the community and our society, so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank Chris for giving me this idea. It was a great idea to talk about this, and Tom especially for coming on. Sheila and Kareena for your work with our children, thank you. I want to thank ECAT for giving me this opportunity to have this television show, and I must point out that this is actually the image that's on our website. It was not pulled out of a kindergarten-aged book. It was actually drawn by one of the OA students, and it was intended to incorporate some of the Easton history with the arch. That's a tree of learning. That's a tiger that's reading under the tree of learning, and you can see the shovel representing the shovel works. Awesome stuff. So thank you. Have a great day, everyone.